different paradigms explain things differently. And that's okay. That's how science works. It's always changing.
Meanwhile, after a full decade of research, geneticists finally present the world with their first draft of a map of the entire human genome. It quickly accelerates new findings. Genes are isolated with links to type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, schizophrenia, and more. In a page out of science fiction, people can now find out if they're likely to get certain diseases before they happen, and they start acting on it.
Nice dramatic music and flashy graphics. But is that clip misleading? Is this an example of scientism in the media? Well, let's look at what science itself says. A recent survey suggests there's no single gene but a complicated soup of many genes and non-genetic factors seeming to give rise to so-called schizophrenia. The experience appears to arise from genetics, epigenetics, and the environment. For those who need a refresher, epigenetics means non-genetic, external, or environmental influences on gene expression. Current research does suggest that adopted children are more likely to develop so-called schizophrenia if one of their biological parents suffered from the condition. But let's think about that. The fact that adopted kids with a schizophrenic biological parent are more likely to contract the disease is still a correlational and not a causal relationship. Correlation just means two or more things happen together. Correlations are not causal relationships. With correlational studies, other variables and ways of interpreting a given result could be entirely overlooked or minimized if they don't fit the program, as it were. Now, if those same unfortunate parents and kids were raised in a very different kind of social order or historical period, might not at least some of them come out as artists, creators, and innovators, or perhaps as mystics, seers, and prophets? Along these lines, how would psychiatry view the biblical story of the prophet Abraham and his young son Isaac? Abraham believed God told him to murder his son Isaac as a sacrifice. Abraham binds Isaac on top of a pile of wood and is ready to slit his throat with a knife. Just before killing Isaac, Abraham believes an angel of the Lord stops him from committing this act of violence. How would psychiatry, or the police for that matter, view this story if it was called in through 911 today? And how about John the Baptist? How would psychiatry view him today? John reportedly ate locusts and wild honey, and he probably looked pretty ragged while zealously preaching about how the Messiah was about to arrive. My guess is that a good percentage of 21st century psychiatrists would try to medicate John to eradicate his delusional thinking. For many believing Christians, this would be an error due to ignorance. But how about those people who actually know better but still use psychiatry to hurt others? Could we say these people are evil? Sadly, communists and dictators use psychiatry as a tool of oppression. Before doing my PhD, a Catholic priest told me that he believed Satan uses psychiatry. The priest was not against psychiatry but against scientism as it creeps into psychiatry. So to return to our man who says Jesus is the only way, most of us stop and think if this really is true or not. But when it comes to scientism as it appears in journalism, advertisements, and even within science itself, why don't we turn the same critical eye to scientism as we do to religion? Scientism wouldn't be a problem if real people were not harmed. But they are. From people who are merely different and nonconformist to those seeking cures for aches and pains, scientism can make their suffering worse. And that's not what science is about. Science is here to help mankind, not harm us. So the next time someone makes some superficial scientific claim, insinuation or nasty innuendo, maybe stop and remember that man who says Jesus is the only way. Let's turn the same razor-edged thinking towards scientism as we do to religion. I think we'd all be a lot happier if we did.